All right, what's going on, everybody? It's Truth and Tell Ministries. Just spending some time on this Sunday night, going through and working on this interlinear etymological translation. And I'm actually now in Exodus, working on chapter 18. And I figured, I might as well stream this so people can kind of see what I'm working on and maybe get some thoughts, on it. I did have somebody comment on the other video that I had done that live stream yesterday, but it was, I don't know. They were saying something about like, don't talk about the, what was it? How the tetragrammaton it could be rendered out, but I don't know. Anyway, so what we'll do is we'll kind of go through and we can look at how useful of a tool this might be, and obviously I need to get this peer reviewed as well. I would be ecstatic to do that actually, but we got a lot of work ahead of us. So let's take a look here and see though. So we got Exodus 18, and I want to just kind of break down, like what these how this translation works. Okay, so you got Exodus 18:1. It says, "And he heard." Okay, so again, most translations will, if we look at really just the vast majority of like translations, will say, Jethro heard, when Jethro heard. Moses is they say Moses' father-in-law Jethro heard all these things, but really the way that this renders everything out is according to the we're using the Aleppo Codex. Okay, it's like the oldest known complete manuscript of the Hebrew Bible from about 1000 or so AD. And then it'll be interesting to go through. Man, it's expensive, but I think I'm going to pull the trigger and buy the critical texts of the Septuagint. It's like a big compilation of just all of the oldest known fragments, and of course, you've got your complete manuscripts of the Septuagint, and just kind of go through that, and so that way we have both versions of the Old Testament. But as far as for what we're using here with the Aleppo, it just follows it very rigorously, right? So you can see here in Exodus 18, it says, "And he heard." Then the word for Jethro is the overflowing one. And what this translation aims to do is just take names and assign to them their true meaning, because the word name in the Bible actually means uh, destiny, like the function and destiny. That's what the word name actually means. So when we see the name Jethro, that's the overflowing one. And same with, he was the priest of Midian. Well, priest is a mediatorial priest, and Midian is of the place of striving. And then when it says that he was the father-in-law, really that word is one allied by marriage. So do you see how rigorous this etymological breakdown really is, but how it really brings a whole brand new, yet I think it's beautiful and refreshing view on what's going on in the narrative here. So he was the one allied by marriage to the one drawn out, which is Moshe, the very substance of all that he had accomplished the making of, the ones who bind by word and power, for the one drawn out, and for he strives with the binder of power, his people. So reading that, you're like, okay, it sounds a little confusing, but basically it's saying what Elohim had done for Moses and for Yisrael, his people. That is God's, Elohim's people, that he had brought out of Israel from Egypt. And again, the very substance of he strives with the binder of power from the two narrow places. This is what the words mean in Hebrew. It's quite interesting when we see this and when we understand. Okay, yeah, the Egypt is literally the etymological morphic translation is the two narrow places, and I think that that really brings out a whole lot of character behind this. And I honestly, I mean, the more I've been doing this translation, the more that I realize, look, this has to be the inspired word of God, because there's concepts in here that I think would be very hard for people. And I mean, this is where the debate comes down to, right? People will say, like the most critical um, opponents to the Bible will say, well, all we really have is the Septuagint. That stuff was written in about 200 BC. So, and it was written by obviously these Jews that were in Egypt at the time. So we'll see how that pans out, as we move more through the translations. Because I mean, one could argue, yeah, they would have a good idea of Egypt, if these people were writing this in Egypt in 200 BC or whatever. But if we take the actual timeline of, what, roughly 1500 BC is when the Israelites left Egypt. I mean, the overall just concepts here, I think it'd be really hard for these concepts to be conveyed if this wasn't the word of God. I mean, we're talking about the two narrow places being Egypt. Like, how do they have that concept, right? I don't know. But anyway, it says, and he took the overflowing one allied by marriage to the drawn out, the very substance of the bird, she-man of the one drawn out after her sendings away. So the bird, Zipporah, right? Again, do you see how these words begin to take like an actual morphic form to them? And by the way, when we see this phrase, the very substance of, that's what the et is in the Hebrew. Et, it's the very substance of. It's like how it's the direct identifier of the substance of this next word in the chain here. And the very substance of her two sons, of whom the name of the one was a sojourner there, for he had uttered, a sojourner I have been in a foreign land. And the name of the one was, my binder of power is help. For the ones who bind by word and power of my father were in my help, and he snatched me away from the sword of the great house. So you can see that again. This is bringing such a deep narrative into the translation. I mean, like literally, let's read verse 4, even out of the interlinear. So we can see here, and with two of her sons, of whom the name of one was Gershom, for he said, a stranger I have been in a land foreign, and the name of the one Eliezer, for he said, the God of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. So you can see here that this is bringing, layers into this. And even, we could argue the word for sword is something that is made to consume. For example, so let's look at, I'm going to just say, is the etymology of the word. So in verse 4, and I'm looking for really, I view it as like the atomic translation. So what I mean by that is there's layers to how you can render out a word from the Hebrew. Okay. And so when we look for the atomic meaning, the word for sword is actually more of like it's it almost is invoking like how a bunch of swords are like the teeth of a mouth. Um it's actually even more like, so destruction is more like desolation. Um and when we look here, a sword is more like an implement of desolation, because that's the imagery that's being invoked is like when an army would be lined up and all these men had their swords drawn out, it would look like a giant mouth with all of its teeth. And what do you do with your mouth to the food? You consume it. It gets destroyed, and then you swallow it, right? So the implement of desolation, I think, is quite accurate here. Um, and if we look, I'm going to actually just kind of do a quick search for sword. Yeah, so you see there's a lot of uses of this word sword, but really it should be an implement of desolation. So what you do is just go, we can replace that. And then now look at like the imagery that gets invoked here in Genesis 3:24. So it says, and he drove out the very substance of the groundling, and he caused to dwell from the ancient place before of the enclosed protection of primordial delight, the very substance of the grasping ones, and the very substance of the flame of the implement of desolation that turns itself to guard the very substance of the way of the tree of the lives. That is that is insanely deep. Okay. And again, it requires just looking at, you know, the overall narrative being talked about here. Like, for example, the grasping ones, if we look, we'll go back to Genesis 3, and at the very end here, it's cherubim. But what that renders out to is literally a grasping, when something grasps. And I'll show you um, how this kind of works out. So when we look at this word in Hebrew, it's kerub. Okay, so kerubim would be the actual way that you pronounce these, the cherubim as people think of them. And again, it really brings a new light to it, because I think most people are, they have that idea of like what a biblically accurate angel is. That's kind of like that was like a meme and stuff like that. But let's look and see how the grasping ones is an actual translation of it. So you've got this word for kerub, and it links to actually an Akkadian word, which means to bless. But when we look at the functional description of this word, the function of it is to guard the way to the tree of the lives. and they're placed alongside the flame of the sword that turns itself. So what we have to look at is okay, what aligns with this function of the cherubim, okay, cherubim, and it's actually an active, threatening kind of posture, with this messenger here standing guard by the way to the path that leads to the tree. So the sound particle, okay, for kerub or kerub, krb, krub, is related to the function of grasping something. So these are essentially, it's meaning for like as a form of blocking the way, and it would be like pushing anyone out of the way of trying to get to the tree of the lives, right? And of course, this is metaphoric. It's all metaphoric. It's important as well to understand why. I guess it plays into the whole narrative of what's going on, and we'll see more as we get further into Exodus as well, because they show up again as well in Exodus 25. But so yeah, in Exodus 18, again, God snatched away him from the implement of desolation of Great House, which is Pharaoh. So the narrative here, it's interesting as well, because the snatching away, like, okay, people that think there's a rapture, there's a bigger thing going in play here. But yeah. So another thing to note is like in verse 25, okay? So in Exodus 18:25, says here, excuse me. So, and he chose the one drawn out, men of force from all he strives with the binder of power, and he gave them as heads over the people, chiefs of thousands, chiefs of hundreds, chiefs of 50s, and chiefs of 10s. So I mean, this is, wow. I want to look real quick and see. In Exodus 18, verse 25. How most other, yeah. So look at how this is different, right? So it says here, even in the interlinear, and he chose Moses able men out of all Israel and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50, and rulers of 10. So, I mean, you can see that there's just a very vast difference on how, I guess, just how this conveys like what's going on in a very, I would say, more poetic and still informative fashion. I mean, able men or men of force, right? Like it gives you a very different insight into the, I guess, overall, even like the mindset of what Moses was doing and why. But all right, so let's go on to Exodus 19. And in 19, we have, let's see, an interlinear. It's in the 3rd month. Okay. So let's see how, again, you've got this word for a month, which, okay, yeah, it's understandable. You know what I mean? It's a more it's a more easy to grasp concept. But when we look at like the biblical narrative, and again, this is viewing this through the Hebraic mindset. This is in the new moon cycle, the 3rd of the going out of the sons of he strives with the binder of power from the land of the 2 narrow places. On this very day, they came to the desolate wildland of the Thornbush Mountain. So Sinai is rendered out as Thornbush Mountain. And that's huge because, again, when we go back to, like, let's look at the overall narrative here. In Genesis 3, when the charge gets laid to Adam, look at what he says here. When they break this covenant, he says here, yeah, look, okay. So verse 18, and thorn and thistle it will cause to sprout for you, and you have eaten the very substance of the covering greenery of the stretched out land. In the sweat of your 2 flared nostrils you will eat bread until you're returning unto the very reddish ground, for from it you were taken. For dust you are, and unto dust you will return. So there's this, threat, this, I guess, consequence for Adam having broken that covenant, and it's a threat with thorn and thistle. So when we get back down here and we see in chapter 19 of Exodus, Sinai is the thornbush mountain. This is now invoking some important imagery, because remember what Paul says in Galatians 4, that the current covenant, okay, the covenant that was the Mosaic law, was Hagar in Arabia, which was Mount Sinai, this thornbush mountain. And actually, even more interestingly, if we go back to Genesis, I want to show you the name of Hagar. What it actually translates out to is, I'll go up a little bit. Let me find it, and you'll this will actually be very interesting. Yeah, okay. So we'll go down here. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it. The name for Hagar is the fugitive. So that's very interesting when we see the whole overall narrative going on here. Fugitive, the mountain of Sinai in Arabia, that present day Jerusalem that Paul was talking about in Galatians 4. So it's just kind of interesting, I think. But anyway, let's see. This is just the promises here given in Exodus 19. Which actually, this, if you've watched any of my other videos, I go into pretty good detail and depth about in Exodus 19. This is a direct juxtaposition, or like I would say like a allusion to 1 Thessalonians 4, where people would say, "Oh, see, we get snatched up, right? This is that rapture thing everyone talks about." Well, look at the difference here. Okay, so you see here. So, and he uttered for saying, He who is and causes to be, unto the one drawn out, go unto the people, and you will set them apart today and tomorrow, and they will wash their garments, and they will be the established ones for the day the third. For on the day the third, he will descend, he who is and causes to be, before the eyes of all the people upon the thorn bush mountain. So, first of all, this is the same thing, and I'm gonna I mean, when we're looking at this, I want to just note that this is also how we know in Revelation chapter 1, where it says, every eye shall see him. This is hearkening back not to every eye of every person on planet Earth, okay? First of all, that's impossible. How could you, okay, the Earth isn't like a place where everybody can see the same thing at every time. But also, it's important because this is just hearkening back again to Exodus 19, when God was descending before all the people to get this covenant initiated. All the people there was, by and large, corporate Israel. There were the mixed multitude there. And I would agree that there were Gentiles who got caught up in AD 70, of course, because there were proselytes. And that's how you have the two olive trees as well of Revelation 11, the Jew, bloodline Israelite, and the Gentile, who were caught up in 70 AD at the time of that, what was it, a 3.5 year siege on the city. There were people that had repented, excuse me, that had repented and turned to Christ. And those were the two olive trees, the witnesses to God. They were those final witnesses. And it's interesting because the force of the grammar in Revelation 11, most people say, "Oh, and their bodies will lie upon the street." It's not it. It's just singular. Their body. It's a single body made up of Jew and Gentile. They were just the final witnesses to the end of the Mosaic age. So anyway, you have this before the eyes of all the people. This is the initiation of the old covenant. And you will set a border for the people all around for the uttering. Guard yourselves. You are ascending upon the mountain, and you're touching its edge, its end edge. Everyone touching the mountain, dying, he will be put to death. A hand will not touch him. For stoning, he will be stoned, or shooting, he will be shot. Whether a beast or a man, he will not live. In the drawing out of the ram's horn, they will ascend upon the mountain. Now, here's the other thing about this: a beast or a man. I'm going to argue that this is talking about the non-covenant man, i.e., one of the Gentiles of the mixed multitude that came out with Israel. So this gives even more credence to covenant creation. A beast or a man, he will not live if he touches the mountain. I don't think God's too concerned with an animal going on the mountain. I mean, it could be, right? But I'm gonna actually argue this is just another point for covenant creation. There's the man who was the covenant man, and then there was the beast, the Gentiles, who were not part of this overall, Old Testament schematic as far as like God, showing himself to Israel. That's why they're considered beasts. Okay, they're not as enlightened as the Israelite, at least back then. So, and he descended, the one drawn out from the mountain unto the people, and he set apart the people, and they washed their garments. And he uttered for saying unto the people, Be the established ones for the 3 days. Do not draw near unto a she-man. And it became on the third day, which I think it's funny. He had to tell him for 3 days, like, hey, chill. You know what I mean? And it became on the day, the third, in the being of the morning, and there were voices and lightnings and a conceptually heavy cloud upon the mountain. I mean, excuse me. I mean, just look at that imagery. Okay. A conceptually heavy cloud upon the mountain, and a voice of a clarion horn exceedingly strong. And he trembled, all the people who were in the encamped host. So look at this. This is also beautiful because it's just like the raw grammar that the Hebraic mindset would use. It's literally saying, and he trembled. And so this is a singular concept, but then it says all the people. So you see this corporate identity here as well, being in the encamped host. And he caused to go out the one drawn out, the people to meet the ones who bind by word and power from the encamped host. And they stationed themselves at the under part of the mountain. And the thorn bush mountain was smoking. And again, let's also talk about this, because if Sinai, I almost just forgot about this. If Sinai is the thorn bush mountain, what is it that God had exposed himself to for Moses? You know, if we go back to Exodus, what is it, 2? No, 3. Sorry. Look at this. And what he was made to be seen, a messenger of he who is and causes to be, unto him in a heart of fire from the midst of the thorn bush. And he saw, and behold, the thorn bush was burning in the fire, and the thorn bush was not being eaten up. So do you see how this is just replaying itself here with Sinai? I mean, it's amazing. We're talking about this, thorn bush mountain was now smoking, all of it, from the faces of that which he had descended upon it, he who is and causes to be, in the fire. And it ascended its smoke as the smoke of the kiln, and he trembled all the mountain exceedingly. And it was the voice of the clarion horn going and being strong exceedingly. The one drawn out would speak, and the ones who bind by word and power would answer him in a voice. So again, look at how we've got this trinity going on here. I want to say, I mean, it's the ones plural who bind by word and power, and they would answer him in a voice, singular. This is the Trinity working in perfect harmony. But yeah, so, and he descended, he who is and causes to be, upon the thorn bush mountain, unto the head of the mountain, and he called out, he who is and causes to be, for the drawn out, for the one drawn out unto the head of the mountain, and he ascended, the one drawn out. So this is the difference that I'm telling here. In the old covenant, when Moses was going to get this covenant initiated, he had to physically ascend this physical mountain to meet with God and have this covenant initiated. In 1 Thessalonians 4, Paul is doing the exact opposite, but using the same imagery. It's that Christ was going to ascend into the heavens, right? Into the air, actually, is the word used there, the air, which is like the lower part of the sky. And that would be where the head of the mountain would be. If there was a physical mountain, it would be up in the air, the lower part of the sky. And yet when he would be there, he would receive us, right? Those people 2,000 years ago. And that would be the work accomplished. These people were being drawn to Christ, not them having to ascend a physical mountain to go meet with Christ. And I think that it's the most obvious thing. I mean, it completely destroys this whole rapture narrative anyway. But yeah, it says, and he uttered for saying, he who is and causes to be, unto the one drawn out, Descend, bear witness in the people, lest they break through unto he who is and causes to be, to see, and he has fallen from it a multitude. Also the mediatorial priests, the ones drawing near unto he who is and causes to be, let them set themselves apart, lest he break forth against them, he who is and causes to be. And he uttered saying, the one drawn out unto he who is and causes to be, he is not able, the people, to ascend unto the thornbush mountain, for you yourself have borne witness in us for the uttering, set a border for the mountain and set it apart. And he uttered saying unto him, he who is and causes to be, go descend, and you will have ascended, you and the one who illuminates with you, and the mediatorial priests and the people. Let them not break through to ascend unto he who is and causes to be, lest he break forth against them. And he descended, the one drawn out, unto the people, and he uttered saying unto them. Now, I want to also note on like verse 24 here, this when it talks about the one who illuminates, that is Aaron, right? The priesthood, the Aaronic priesthood, where the Levitical priesthood comes from. And I think that this is very important because, again, we've got names being like a function and a destiny. And well, let's look at it like this, okay? If we do a search for name, just the word name, okay, so there's a lot of this name business going on here. And then we've got names plural. And then we've got named. Okay, perfect. So we would look at name first. And we would say, all right, so like, let's look at this. Just hear me out. When we have the word name, I just kind of want to show you what this can kind of lead to. So all right, so the word is Shem, right? Or Shemeh. And when we break it down, it really does get kind of nuanced, but the word for Shem can, if you run it through like this rule set, it's not that it's a label, it's a destiny, a function, or an active state of being. It's to declare a function and destiny into existence. So to have great Shem is not to be famous, but to possess a great function and destiny. So actually, yeah. So it's psychosemantic reality. Okay, so let's look at this here. I think we need to start first with name. So Shem. Let's just see how this works here. So if we replace this as function and destiny, let's replace everything. We'll see real quick. Okay. And then we'll go here, function and destinies, and replace it with functions and destinies. Okay. So let's see if this helps bring anything. All right. So let's see if this makes any sense. All right. So in Genesis chapter 1, verse 5, and he called out the function and destiny, the ones who bind by word and power, for the luminescence, day. And for the darkness, he called out the function and destiny, night. And an intermixing became, and a splitting forth became, day one. And he called out the function and destiny, the ones who bind by word and power, for the beaten out expanse, high waters, and an intermixing became, and a splitting forth became a day, a second. Wow. So function and destiny. I mean, let's look at it here. It's also kind of interesting too because Shem is like can we get a let's see if we can get a scholarly agreement on the function and destiny role the word plays in its most bare atomic level etymology. All right, let's see what we get here. So if we look at the semantics, just going through this. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is interesting. All right, so if we look at the Paleo Hebrew, okay, of how you break down the shin and the mem for shameh. Shin is represents teeth, and the function of teeth is to differentiate, to cut something out, to bite into it. It makes its mark into a surface. It says that shin is the force that distinguishes one thing from another with unyielding pressure. And then the mem represents water. The function of water in the Hebraic conceptual matrix is that of the vast, the chaotic, the potential, the mighty flow of existence itself. It is the surging deep, the undifferentiated multitude. Mem is the particle of vast, flowing potentiality. So when we observe their fusion, the word Shem is the result of the Shin particle acting upon the Mem particle, and the concept of a sharp distinction pressed upon the vastness of potential. A Shem is the act of using the active, cutting force of Shin to carve a distinct individual reality out of the chaotic, undifferentiated waters of Mem. A being without a Shem is formless, part of the indistinct multitude, adrift in the chaos of potentiality. To give a Shem is to apply the Shin, to press a unique pattern into that being, to cut it out from that formless whole, and thereby to assign it a specific role and trajectory. So it proves that function and destiny is the only possible correct cipher for these words. Perfect. So yeah. Okay. And again, this is even more like reference to covenantal creation, I would say, because when it's the function and destiny of the high waters, the function and destiny of the light and the night, right? The day and the night. It's talking about believers and non-believers. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting. I guess when we go and the shining forth. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, just something to keep in mind with the name of Aaron. The one who illuminates, it's to bring light to the darkness, and that was the role, right, of the priesthood, to bring light to the darkness. Ultimately, of course, this is done through Christ, but yeah. All right, so that was Exodus 19. So now we get to Exodus 20. Just kind of looking at this here. Okay. Now, look at this, okay? This is why it's like so just powerful. It says, and he spoke the ones who bind by word and power, the very substance of all these ordered matters for the uttering. Now he's kind of recapitulating. Moses is about to tell Israel, I am he who is and causes to be, your ones who bind by word and power, who caused you to go out from the land of the two narrow places, from a house of servants. There will not be to you other ones who bind by word and power over my faces. You will not accomplish the making of for yourself a carved image and any patterned form which is in the high waters from above and which is in the land from under and which is in the waters from under the land. You will not bow down to them, and you will not serve them, for I myself am he who is and causes to be, your ones who bind by word and power, a binder of power, zealous hot, authoritatively intervening for the crookedness of fathers upon sons, upon the third generation and upon the fourth generation of the ones who hate me, but accomplishing the making of steadfast loving kindness for thousands, for the ones who bond with me and for the ones who guard my commands. You will not lift up the function and destiny of he who is and causes to be, your ones who bind by word and power, for emptiness, for he will not hold as cleansed, he who is and causes to be, the one who lifts up his function and destiny for emptiness. Wow. Okay, so let's unpack that real quick, because that is Very profound. So here's, I mean, really how most things, like let's look at the King James, okay? Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Versus, you will not lift up, okay? So that's interesting. The function and destiny of he who is and causes to be, your ones who bind by word and power, for emptiness, for he will not hold as cleansed he who is and causes to be, the one who lifts up his function and destiny for emptiness. I mean, are you guys like see? Are you guys getting just how absolutely poetically potent this kind of rendering is? I mean, does it get the same general idea across? I guess. Sorry, I have a hair on my hat. I guess it does, but I mean, you've also got this more guttural understanding of what is being said here, because now if you're holding up or lifting up the name, and that name is the function and destiny of God. Think about that, right? Remember the day of the Sabbath to set it apart. Now, I would be interested to see how the Sabbath breaks out, how this gets rendered out. I'm gonna go let my dog in. He's howling. Hold on one moment, but I'll be right back. All right. So let's take a look here and see. Let's see how they handle Shabbat. So it's not the day of rest, it's not a day of cleansing. This noun represents a state of being in which all malacha, deputized work of creation, is violently and totally cut off. Wow. Let's see. So it's a complete cessation. That's interesting. So this is what Shabbat would actually be. It'd be the complete cessation. Let's see in verse 11 as well. They use this. Yeah. Wow, this is actually, that's quite interesting. So I'm glad I kind of caught this. This is the day of the complete cessation. Excuse me, also used in Exodus 16, verse 29. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's actually used here a few times. So it's used in Exodus 16:26. So they say a. Oh, okay, I see. So look at how this is rendered here. It's different. Giving you the complete cessation. So when we, excuse me, when we see this used, this is a little bit different. So I'm going to say how, let's see how this, it in Exodus 16, 23, 25, and 26. All right. See, this is why we're doing this real time here. It's quite interesting to see how this plays out. Hmm. So, okay, so in verse 23, it would be rendered, and he uttered, for saying unto them, this is what he spoke, he who is and causes to be a period of complete cessation, a complete cessation of set apartness. Okay. And then verse 25. And he uttered for saying, the one drawn out, eat this day, for a complete cessation this day is for he who is and causes to be. This day you will not find it in the stretched out land. So that's also interesting too. Okay. Morning, and they placed it until the morning as he had commanded, the one drawn out, and it did not stink, and a maggot was not in it. So they were able to then eat that day. They wouldn't find it in the stretched out land. It says 6 days you will gather it. Interesting. 6 days you will gather it. On the seventh day is a complete cessation. There will not be in it. Okay. Perfect. So, yeah, it's very interesting that that's what the Sabbath would be called for them, a cessation. But it kind of makes sense, right? Okay, so let's go back down to verse 20, or chapter 20. So the day of the complete cessation, to set it apart. 6 days you will serve, you will have accomplished the making of all your deputized work. And the day is a... Okay, so let's... Okay. Your manservant, your maidservant, and your beast, and your sojourner, which is in your gates. Okay. Make conceptually heavy your father and your mother. That's just, I mean, that's just beautiful language. You will not brutally murder. You will not break the wedlock. You will not steal. You will not answer against your shepherding companion as a witness of a lie. You will not desire to possess the house of your shepherding companion. You will not desire to possess the she-man of your shepherding companion, and his maidservant, and his and his manservant, and his maidservant, and his ox, and his he-donkey, and all that which belongs to your shepherding companion. Now, I am curious to see here. Verse 25. Yeah. Okay. So this is actually a bit better now. A little bit cleaner. And all the people were the ones seeing the voices and the flaming torches and the voice of the clarion horn and the mountain smoking. And he saw the people, and they shook, and they stood firm from far off. And they uttered for saying unto the one drawn out, You speak with us, and we will listen. And let them not speak with us, the ones who bind by word and power, lest we die. And he uttered for saying, the one drawn out unto the people, Do not fear, for the sake of testing you has come, the ones who bind by word and power, and for the sake that his fear may be upon your faces, so that you not miss the mark. And he stood firm, the people, from far off, and the one drawn out drew near unto the thick gloom where there were the ones who bind by word and power. And he uttered for saying, He who is in causes to be, unto the one drawn out, Thus you will utter unto the sons of he strives with the binder of power. You yourselves have seen that from the high waters I have spoken with you. You will not accomplish the making of anything with me. Ones who bind by word and power of silver, and ones who bind by word and power of gold, you will not make for yourselves. A slaughter place of reddish ground you will make for me, and you will sacrifice upon it your things made to ascend, and your things of completeness, your flock and your cattle. In every place where I cause to be remembered my function and destiny, I will come unto you, and I will have knelt in blessing you. And if a slaughter place of stones you make for me, you will not build them of cut stone. For your implement of desolation you have lifted up upon it, and you have profaned it. And you will not ascend by steps unto my slaughter place, so that it not be uncovered, your unprotected nakedness upon it. So that's interesting as well. So basically, God was like, "Yeah, we're not going to make step-up altars or anything," which is quite different to what you see in all of those ancient, sacrifice practices, Mesopotamian, Egyptian, Native American, you name it. So that's actually quite interesting that there's a distinct difference there. Now, I am curious as well. If we look at verse 26, the nakedness. Using the call root word what is the function? I should say, what are the functions morphics of these words? Okay. We're getting places. Okay, so forceful and total removal of a covering, boundary, or contained substance, exposure of that which was underneath. Most having been stripped, poured out, and laid bare. So the stripping of garments, revealing the vulnerable flesh, and there's a military vulnerability as well. About Harares, the nakedness of the land is not a physical image, is the functional state of the land's defenses having been stripped away, its secret paths and weak points laid bare and exposed to attack. A man who is in a state of Ervach has had his protective boundary, his garment, house, social dignity stripped away, leaving his essential self exposed and vulnerable. Our supplements capture this. So previous unprotected nakedness was an incomplete draft. Okay. That's kind of good. So let's see. We go here for unprotected nakedness. Interesting. So in Genesis 42, verse 9, it uses that the nakedness of the land. So 42 verse 9 and 11. It uses Okay. See, so there's a lot of work that kind of goes into this because we want to make sure we're as rigorous as possible. I mean, what does unprotected nakedness really mean? It's probably going to be the unprotected state of laid bare vulnerability. Okay, so rather okay, so this makes more sense too. Okay, so let's take a look at this in Genesis 42, verse 9, and it says, "And he marked for action, he will add the very substance of the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and he uttered for saying unto them, ones who spy you are, to see the very essence of a state of laid bare vulnerability of the land you have come." Now, this would make sense because if there was a famine going on, the land would be in a vulnerable position, right? If there was this famine and people didn't have food, et cetera, et cetera. So it actually makes a lot of sense that that he would tell them, "Oh no, you're spies. You're coming to see if the land is in a state of being able to be invaded or attacked." So that is actually very interesting. And then we look at in Genesis 9:22 and 23 for Noah. Yeah, the nakedness of the father. Yeah, Hashem is it would actually be function and destiny and renown. That's interesting. So we'll have to do this too. We'll have to go search, replace, and we see function and destiny. We're going to replace it with capital function and destiny and renown. Okay. Anyway, so in Genesis 9:22, so say what about in 9:22 and 23? It's a lot of work, but it must be done to really, I guess, try and do the best we can with our translation. Okay. So Verse 22. The very substance of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Make also. All right. So now we've got function and destiny and renown and the spacious place, the very substance of the garment. They put it upon the shoulder of the two of them. Okay. So the very substance of. Let's go back to Genesis 34. Or sorry, 43. Okay. Okay. So perfect. Let's see. Yeah, that gives a whole lot more meaning, I think, to this. So let's start with Exodus, or Exodus 21 then. Okay. So now we've got it starts going into, the more extraneous parts of the law. So, I mean, I guess this is where people start talking about like slavery or whatever. And these are the judgments which you will put before their faces. When you acquire a servant, a crossed over one, 6 years he will serve, and in the 7th he will go out for the state of being unrestrained for nothing. If with his own body he comes, with his own body he will go out. If he is the master of a she-man, then she will go out, his she-man with him. If his lord master gives to him a she-man, and she has borne to him sons or daughters, The she-man and her children will be for her lord master, and he will go out with his own body. And if uttering he utters, the servant, I have bonded to my lord master, my she-man and my sons, I will not go out an unrestrained one. And then he will cause him to draw near his lord master, and unto the ones who bind by word and power, and he will cause him to draw near unto the door or unto the standing post. And he will pierce his lord master, his ear with the piercer, and he will serve him for the hidden time. Meaning, you're gonna be serving here forever then, okay? And when a man sells his daughter for a bondwoman, she will not go out as the going out of the men servants. If she is dysfunctional and calamitous in the eyes of her lord master, who had not designated her for himself, then he will let her be redeemed. To a foreign people he will not have dominion to sell her in his dealing treacherously with her. And if for his son he designates her, according to the judgment of daughters, he will accomplish the making of for her. If another he takes for himself, her flesh sustenance, her covering garment, and her time of response, he will not diminish. And if these three he does not accomplish the making of for her, then she will go out for nothing without silver. One who strikes a man and he dies, dying he will be put to death. And he who did not hunt for him, but the ones who bind by word and power caused it to happen to his hand, then I will put for you a place where he may flee there. Wow. Wow. That's interesting, right? So this is where the distinction comes in. Like, if you were hunting for this guy to murder him, then yeah, okay, that's one thing. But the ones who bind by word and power caused it to happen to his hand. Okay, so he who did not hunt for him, but Elohim caused it to happen to his hand, then I will put for you a place where he may flee there. Meaning, like, yeah, this is divine judgment. You know, I was using you as an instrument to end the life of this person. We'll have a way for you to have not have to die, not have to be put to death. And when he schemes arrogantly, a man against his shepherding companion to kill him with subtle craftiness from with my slaughter place, you will take him to die. And one who strikes his father and his mother, dying, he will be put to death. And one who steals a man and sells him, and he is found in his hand, dying, he will be put to death. And one who curses his father and mother, dying, he will be put to death. And when they contend, men, and he has struck a man, his shepherding companion, with a stone or with a grasping fist, and he does not die, but has fallen to a place of lying down, if he rises up and walks himself about in the outside upon his support, then he will be cleansed, the one who struck. Only his time of ceasing will he give. A mending he will cause to be mended. And when a man strikes his manservant or his bondwoman with the rod, and he dies under his hand, avenging it will be avenged. But if a day or 2 days he stands firm, it will not be avenged, for he is his silver. Wow. Basically saying, like, it's his purchased possession, the silver, the currency. Yeah, that's interesting. And when they are brawling, men, they have struck a she-man who is pregnant, and her children have gone out, but there will not be a fatal mishap. Being fined, he will be fined, as he puts upon him the master of the she-man, and he will give by the interveners. And if a fatal mishap there will be, then you will give animating breath of appetite under the place of the animating breath of appetite. Eye under the place of eye, tooth under the place of tooth, hand under the place of hand, foot under the place of foot. A brand marker under the place of a brand marker, an open wound under the place of an open wound, a bound welt under the place of a bound welt. And when a man strikes the eye of his manservant or the eye of his bondwoman, and he has brought it to ruin for the state of being unrestrained, he will send him away under the place of his eye. And if the tooth of his manservant or the tooth of his bondwoman he causes to fall, for the state of being unrestrained, he will send him away under the place of his tooth. And when it gores an ox, a man or she-man, and he dies, stoning it will be stoned. The ox and his flesh will not be eaten, and the master of the ox is cleansed. And if it was a goring ox from yesterday and the day before, and it had been witnessed against to its master, but he did not guard it, and it has caused to death a man or a she-man, the ox will be stoned, and also its master will be put to death. If a covering payment is put upon him, then he will give the redemption of his animating breath of appetite according to all that which is put upon him. Or a son it gores, or a daughter it gores, according to this very judgment, it will be accomplished the making for him. If a manservant it gores, the ox or a bondwoman, silver of 30 shekels he will give to his master, and the ox will be stoned. 30 shekels of silver. And when he opens a man a pit, or when he digs a man a pit, and he does not cover it, and he has fallen there an oxen or a he donkey, the master of the pit will make it complete. Silver he will return to its master, and the dead one will be his. And when it strikes the ox of a man, the ox of his shepherding companion, and it dies, and they will sell the living ox, and they will split in half its silver, and also the dead one they will split in half. Or it was intimately known that it was a goring ox from yesterday and the day before, and he did not guard it, its master, making complete, he will make complete an ox under the place of an ox, and the dead one will be his. So I want to say that there's a lot of like spirituality to these being talked about here. Paul affirms that, he says the law is spirit. Matter of fact, let me show you something real quick. I think I've shown this before, but it always just tickles my fancy. In 1 Corinthians, I believe it's chapter 10. I'll have to look real quick. No, it's probably 12. Let's see. Maybe it is. No, is it not? Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's 1 Corinthians 9. So hold on, I'm going to share this other screen real quick. All right, so look, I always find this interesting, okay? And this is the YLT. It says, my defense to those who examine me in this, have we not authority to eat and to drink? Have we not authority, a sister, a wife, to lead about, as also the other apostles and the brethren of the Lord and Cephas? Or only I and Barnabas have we not authority not to work? Who doth serve as a soldier at his own charges at any time? Who doth plant a vineyard, and of its fruit doth not eat? Or who doth feed a flock, and of the milk of the flock doth not eat? According to man do I speak these things, or doth not also the law say these things? For in the law of Moses it hath been written, thou shalt not muzzle an ox treading out corn. For the oxen doth God care. Or because of us, by all means doth he say it. Yes, because of us it was written, because in hope ought the plower to plow, and he who is treading ought of his hope to partake in hope. So my argument here is Paul is like, do you think God really cares about the ox? No. Does he care about the he donkey? No. but it was because of those first century Jews that were doing this work that these laws were actually put in. I mean, I think it's just very interesting. Like Paul is affirming that the physicality of the law of Moses had a spiritual reality. And that's what we see here, I think, I don't know. I mean, like when a man digs a pit, and an ox or a donkey falls in the pit, you know, does he return the silver to its master? I mean, it's just interesting to say the least that, Paul is even affirming like, hey, this stuff is not actual, like there's a deeper reality to it. There's a deeper reality to what's going on here. And I understand that, also people argue that Paul is talking about, well, they're allowed to feed us and this and that, which I agree. I think he is saying that, but also he then goes on to say that they were sowing spiritual things, and that's the spiritual things that are raised up in 1 Corinthians 15. So, what the heck? Did my screen just glitch out? Okay, let me do this again. There we go. So yeah, interesting. All right, so then we got Exodus 23. And you can look through this later. Exodus 24. I think we are, how many chapters are in Exodus? 40. So yeah, we're over halfway through Exodus. I can't wait till we get to like, Isaiah, Jeremiah. It's going to be a lot of work going through them. But it's necessary. You know what I mean? It's going to show the. I think it's going to be very useful, I guess, to prove covenant eschatology, full preterism, whatever we want to look at. And again, I think it should be peer reviewed and ripped through and torn through, and absolutely, All right. I guess the other thing that's interesting too is like, in the Garden of Gethsemane, where like as they're going deeper into the garden, like more and more people are staying behind. Kind of what I'm getting here from Exodus 24. He's like, God's like, okay, you're gonna take the one who illuminates, the willing one, and my Father is He, and 70 from the old ones of He strives with the binder of power, and you will bow yourselves down from afar off, and He will draw near, the one drawn out by Himself unto He who is in causes to be, and they will not draw near, and the people will not ascend with Him. So it's like He's like, okay, Moses, you're going to take this group of people, and then they're going to kind of stay back, and then you're going to go in, which is like what happens in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? Like Jesus is the only one that goes in fully. Like he's by himself, and that's when he has his conversation. which Unitarians don't like that. They don't like what's going on there. They say, like, how could Jesus be praying to himself? Okay. You got it. Go to Exodus 25. This is talking about, like, I think the construction of the tabernacle. Yeah, this contribution lifted up, which you will take from them gold and silver and copper, and blue violet wool, and red purple wool, and the shining scarlet worm wool, and bleached white linen, and she goat hair. Now let's look at this here. This is interesting for bleached. So verse 4. So this is the first time it's actually used as well. It's actually used once in Genesis 41:2. Okay, so that's interesting. But let's see what this is. So I'm just interested to see bleached white. So let's see if we look. Okay, so interesting. So sun curing is bleaching. No. So I think so it's interesting. The concept of bleaching is by using the sun, by washing it and then having it be sun cured. Um, Interesting. Well, I guess I could take this. Hmm. Interesting. So if we look here, I wonder what it does in Genesis 41. Verse 42. Yeah, bleached white. Yeah. It's awesome. Okay. So let's see. Let's save just in case. Okay. Yeah, so in the shining scarlet warm wool, it's amazing. She goat hair, hides of ram made red, and hides of badgers, and woods of the acacia, oil for the luminary, spices for the oil of the anointing, and for the incense of the aromatics, onyx stones and stones for the settings, for the ephod, and for the chest piece of judgment. They will accomplish the making of, for me, a set apart place, and I will dwell in their midst. The pattern of being of the dwelling place and the pattern of being of all its vessels, so you will accomplish the making of. Very substance of the testimony which I will give to you. Wow. Look at this. And you will accomplish the making of two grasping ones of gold. Of beaten work, you will accomplish the making of them from the two end edges of the covering place of the atonement. And accomplish the making of the grasping one from one end edge from this side, and the grasping one from one end edge of the other from that side. Covering place of atonement, you will accomplish the grasping ones upon its two end edges. And they will be the grasping ones with wings spread out toward the upward place, the ones screening with their wings over the covering place of atonement. And their faces, a man unto his brother, unto the covering place of atonement, will be the faces of the grasping ones. Wow. And you will give the covering place of atonement upon the chest from above, and unto the chest you will give the very substance of the testimony which I will give unto you. And I will meet by appointment with you there, and I will speak with you from upon the covering place of atonement, from between the two grasping ones, which are upon the chest of the testimony, the very substance of all that which I command you, and to the sons of the he who strives of power, with the binder of power. Yeah, I mean, this is all about essentially, yeah, the making of the tabernacle. So I want to look here and see then, because in Exodus like 26, 27, 28, it's quite interesting as well. You will give upon the table of the bread of the faces before my faces continually. Wow. That is freaking amazing. I mean, it's just like this is the show bread, but it's actually the bread of the faces. it's amazing. Which I've always said, you know, there's levels to this. You know what I mean? Definitely, there is depth, deep understanding that needs to be brought about here. But I mean, you know, it's really just to try and have a better understanding of how we can perform these apologetics for full preterism. That's what this is all comes down to. This is the most important part to me, at least. This is 28. Oh, no, 27. Sorry. That's 26. Yeah. Okay. Bleached white, a thing artfully twisted, and accomplished making of an embroiderer. Their pillars 4, and their Lord Master bases 4. All the pillars of the courtyard all around will be connected with rods of silver, their hooks of silver, and their Lord Master bases of copper. The length of the courtyard 100 in the cubit. Okay. It's interesting, like their Lord Master bases. You know what I mean? It's just very, very interesting language. And you will command the sons of he strives with the binder of power, that they may take unto you oil of olive, pure, beaten for the luminary, to cause to ascend a lamp continually in the 10th of appointed time. Let's say, okay, the 10th of appointed time. From outside the divider curtain, which is upon the testimony, he will set it in order, the one who illuminates and his sons, from intermixing until morning before the faces of he who is and causes to be. It is an inscribed decree of the hidden time for their generations, from with the sons of he strives with the binder of power. So this as well is interesting. You know, when we talk about like the lamp, and then Christ says, "I am the light." Right? He's actually the we see the whole temple typology culminated in Christ Jesus as well, which I think is just amazing. And then we've got 28. We'll probably finish up Exodus. We'll probably just go to Exodus 30, and then I'll call it for the night. It's been a lot of work here. Already been going at this for an hour and 49 minutes. But I mean, I think it's beautiful. You know what I mean? Like just bringing the word of God to life. And these are kind of important. I mean, you know, I know a lot of people think like, oh, what's the purpose of reading through Exodus, you know, for Christians, and This is the new covenant. But you know what? I'm like, this is all pointing toward the culmination. We wouldn't be able to be Christians if we didn't have these things happening in the Old Testament, right? I mean, really, if you think about it, there's no Christianity without the predecessors. So let's look here. All around the accomplished making of a weaver as the mouth of a scaled armor coat. It will be for it that it may not be torn, and you will accomplish the making of upon its lower hems pomegranates of blue violet wool and red purple wool, and the shining scarlet worm wool upon its lower hems all around, and bells of gold in their midst all around. I was talking about the ephod. Hmm. The turban of bleached white, and a sash you will make, the accomplished making of an embroider. So in verse 39, Exodus 28:39, I am curious. Hmm. Well, it's actually all in 28, Leviticus and Ezekiel. Hmm. I just want to make sure. Because to me, this looks like something that's tightly bound. If I look at the etymology here, mitznefeth. Hmm. A mitzbeach slaughter place is the instrument for zavach, to slaughter. A mitznefeth is therefore the instrument as a result of a tesnapah, to wind in layers. It's not merely a hat, it is the physical apparatus made by the act of layered winding for the purpose of layering winding upon the head. So head wrapping, wound upon winding, is conceptually redundant. So I have a layered head binding, actually. Okay. So I can get with that. So let's look here. Whoa, wait, what? How was it? Try this. Well, no. Case it's okay. So a layered head binding, Exodus 28:4. This is what we were just looking at, actually. Okay, so this is a layered head binding. Then in verse 37, it's probably the layered head binding. The layered head binding. $39. And Leviticus. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that. Leviticus. Okay. Okay, perfect. So yeah, that's interesting. Like the word turban, really, it's a layered head binding. So who would have known? All right, so we've got Exodus 28. Now let's look at Exodus 29. Okay. Exodus 29, we've got the anointing of the priesthood, right? Should accomplish making them to them set apart for their acting as mediatorial priests. To me, take one bull. Son of the herd, and 2 rams, complete ones. Bread of an unleavened thing. And pierce cakes of unleavened things mixed thoroughly in oil, and thin wafers of unleavened things smeared with oil, of fine flour of wheats you will accomplish the making of them. You will give them upon one basket, and you'll bring them near in the basket, and the bull and the 2 rams, the substance of the one who illuminates and his sons. You will cause to draw near unto the opening point of the tent of appointed time, and you will wash them in water. You will clothe the one with the tunic, with the robe of the ephod, and with the ephod, and with the chest piece, and you will gird him with the band of the ephod. You will put the layered head binding upon his head, and you will give the diadem of the set apart place upon the layered head. Okay, so hold on a second. The diadem, that's interesting. I mean, this is more like it's just calling to mind what we see in Revelation. You will anoint him. His sons you will cause to draw near, and you will clothe them with tunics. Now, here's the other thing, too, actually. The clothing, the putting on of the tunics. When we look at Genesis chapter 3, verse, I think it's 19, no, 21. Yeah. In Genesis 3:21, when God has the tunics, he makes tunics out of the animal, and he clothes Adam and Eve, the groundling, and what was the name for Eve again? Let's look back up here. Oh yeah, living one. Yeah. So groundling and living one. But you see that they have says, and he clothed them. This is interesting because the way that is rendered out is only ever rendered out one other time, Leviticus 8:13, when it's talking about the same thing. And he clothed them. So it's like the priesthood being ordained here when God clothed Adam and Eve. We get down here and it's like recapitulating that stuff. So it's just very interesting. It's Exodus 29. Now we got Exodus 30. We'll go to that one here. And we will call it a day. Getting this translation work done, though, thankfully. All right, and I'll be right back as this kind of works its thing. All right. So let's see here. We've got Exodus 30 coming in hot. Mm-hmm. More you will accomplish the making of a basin for washing of copper and its stand of copper for a washing. And then you will give its very substance between the tent of appointed time and between the slaughter place, and you will give their water. I wonder, I'm interested to know if this is the plural. I'm going to assume, yes, it is absolutely the plural. Yeah. Um, so that's why you have to have like a sharp eye, you know what I mean? The waters. Let's make sure. I think we can just single it out as water though. No, I won't even find it like that. Okay. Um, I think it's only here because if we look for waters in plural, it's like everywhere. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Waters, 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 waters to wash. Eye source of the waters, which is interesting. And so they call a well an eye source of the waters. Drinking channels of the waters. The high waters. Yeah, I think this might kind of be the only place where that's why I like to make sure. Where was this here? Oh yeah, here it is. So this is the waters. Oh, there's one right there too. I think that's the only instance. Okay, good thing we caught that. All right. Exit 29, it's waters. And this one here. is the waters. And where else was it? Okay. With the waters. Okay. Slaughter place, set them apart. The very substance of the one who eliminates, and the very substance of his sons you will anoint. You will set them apart for their acting as a mediatorial priest to me. The sons instruct the binder you are seeking ordered matter for the uttering. Oil of anointing of a set apart place. This will be to me for your generations. Upon the flesh of a groundling it will not be poured, and in its measured proportion you will not accomplish the making of one like it. It is a set apart place. A set apart place it will be to you. So actually, okay, so look at this. So take for yourself head aromatics, free flowing myrrh 500, and aromatic cinnamon bark it's half 50 and 200, and aromatic cane 50 and 200, and the rolled bark 500 in the shekel of the set apart place, and oil of olive a hin. And you will accomplish the making of it oil for anointing of a set apart place, a compound of perfume compounding, the accomplished making of a perfume compounder. It will be oil of anointing of a set apart place, and you will anoint with it the tent of the appointed time, and the chest of the testimony, and the table and all its vessels, and the luminary stand in its vessels, and the slaughter place of the thing that makes aromatic smoke. So that's interesting. Substance of his sons you will anoint some part. Oil anointing was to me for your generations. Upon the flesh of a groundling, it will not be poured. So this is interesting. I'm wondering if look at a man who will compound a perfume like it, and who gives from it upon a stranger, then he'll be cut off from his peoples. That's very interesting. There's something here with this for sure, because the anointing oil, but the anointing is Christ, and we are anointed through Christ. So I think this even more poetically, describes the rendering idle of the law of Moses, because none of this needs to be worried about anymore. Kind of salted, pure, and set apart place. You will crush fine from it until it is fine. You'll the faces of the testimony, and the tent of the appointed time, where I will meet by appointment with you there. A set apart place of set apart places it will be to you. And the thing that makes aromatic smoke, with which you will accomplish the making of in its measured portion, you will not accomplish the making of for yourselves. A set apart place it will be for you, for he who is and causes to be. Man who accomplishes the making of one like it, to smell its scent, then he'll be cut off from his peoples. All right. Well, that's what I got here for today. We'll pick it up then in Exodus 31, starting hopefully tomorrow, but we'll see how far we can get with it. But man, we are putting in work for sure. I'm really excited about this. So, all right then. Until next time.